Rachel Miller was 33 years old and had grown accustomed to being treated like a shadow by her family. But that night, when the ceramic plate her daughter had painted by hand was knocked onto the stone floor and shattered in front of dozens of guests, something inside Rachel shattered with it. Helen's 65th birthday celebration was being held in the private garden of an upscale restaurant in Chicago. Strings of golden lights hung between the trees, crystal glasses clinked softly. The guests were all business owners, investors, and the kind of people Chloe was always desperate to impress. Rachel's older sister, Chloe Miller, stood at the center of a small stage in a form-fitting silver dress. With a glass raised in one hand, she spoke about Aura Art, a chain of talent development centers for young people that she claimed to have built from nothing. In just a few weeks, Aura Art was scheduled to receive a $2 million grant to open 3 new locations. Arthur and Helen looked at their eldest daughter with unmistakable pride. In their eyes, Chloe was the symbol of the family's success. Rachel, by contrast, was simply someone with a dull office job, someone who lived quietly and had never brought home glamorous photographs they could show off to their friends. No one noticed Maya standing close behind her mother. The 8-year-old girl held a box in both hands. Maya spoke more slowly than other children her age. Whenever she became nervous, it often took her a long time to arrange her thoughts into a complete sentence. But in the world of colors, Maya had never been slower than anyone. For 3 weeks, she had worked on a ceramic plate as a birthday gift for her grandmother. On its surface, she had painted a garden with 4 people standing beneath a large tree. Maya had used blue for Rachel, yellow for Helen, and left a wide stretch of sky above them, the way she imagined a family should be. When Maya stepped forward, Helen looked at the gift for only a few seconds before turning back toward the group of guests beside her. Chloe bent down and picked up the plate with 2 fingers, as though it were something cheap. She asked Maya whether she attended an art class. Maya shook her head. Chloe curled her lip. She said children who had no achievements should not pretend to make artistic gifts. Clumsy things like that only made other people uncomfortable. Then she slammed the plate down near the edge of the table. The plate slid, fell onto the stone floor, and shattered into several pieces. For a few seconds, the entire garden went silent. Maya stood completely still. Her small hands remained in the same position, as though she were still holding the box that was now empty. She stared at the pieces of ceramic near her feet. Her eyes turned red, but she did not cry. Rachel knelt and began gathering the broken pieces one by one. A sharp edge cut into the tip of her finger. Blood rose from the wound, bright red against the patch of blue Maya had painted to represent her mother. Rachel looked up at her parents. Arthur frowned, not because of what Chloe had done, but because Rachel was drawing the guests' attention. He told her to take Maya outside and not allow a childish incident to ruin an important evening for her sister. Helen sighed. She said Chloe was under tremendous pressure because of the large grant. As her younger sister, Rachel should be more understanding. Once again, cruelty was being called family harmony. Once again, Rachel was being told to remain silent in order to protect the image of the person who had hurt her. But this time, the person who had been hurt was Maya. Rachel did not argue. She placed the ceramic pieces inside the box, took her daughter's hand, and walked past tables covered with untouched food. Chloe watched them leave with an irritated expression, convinced that Rachel would disappear again, just as she always had. Inside the car, Maya silently watched the city lights pass beyond the window. A long time later, she finally asked her mother whether she was not allowed to be Grandma's granddaughter because she was not talented enough. The question made Rachel tighten her grip on the steering wheel. For 33 years, she had endured being treated as though she were insignificant. But she would not allow her daughter to grow up believing that love had to be earned through achievement. Rachel pulled over to the side of the road. She opened her phone and signed into the administrative account of a private investment fund that no one in her family knew she owned. Aura Art's profile appeared on the screen. 52% ownership, an expansion loan guaranteed under her name, and a $2 million grant awaiting final approval. Rachel looked at Maya, who was holding the box filled with the broken pieces of ceramic. Then she selected the option requesting an emergency review. That night, Chloe continued raising her glass and celebrating Aura Art's future. She had no idea that the woman she had just driven out of the party was the person holding that entire future in her hands. Later that night, Rachel brought Maya home to their small apartment on the north side of Chicago. The girl did not say another word. Maya simply placed the box containing the broken ceramic pieces on her desk, then sat beside the window and used one finger to draw invisible lines across the cold glass. Rachel stood outside her daughter's bedroom for a long time. She wanted to walk inside, hold Maya, and tell her that everything would be all right. But she understood that a few comforting words could not erase the expression on Maya's face when her grandmother had turned away. Nor could they repair the trust that her own relatives had just crushed beneath their feet. After Maya fell asleep, Rachel returned to the living room. The clock read 9 in the evening. She placed her computer on the table, closed the curtains, and opened a data archive that only she and her private attorney had been authorized to access for the past 4 years. Hundreds of Aura Art financial reports appeared on the screen: property rental costs, teachers' salaries, scholarship funds, the expansion loan. Every transaction carried Rachel's final approval through the Meridian Trust. Her family still believed she was nothing more than an ordinary risk analyst. Chloe believed the same thing. None of them knew that after Aura Art had nearly gone bankrupt during its first year, Rachel had quietly purchased a controlling interest through an independent legal entity. She was the person who had guaranteed the loan that allowed the organization to survive. She was the person who had connected Chloe with its first investors. She was also the person who had insisted that her name never appear in any promotional material, because she had once believed Chloe's success might finally convince their parents to stop treating their eldest daughter like a child who constantly needed to prove her worth. Rachel had been wrong. Her silence had not made Chloe grateful. It had convinced Chloe that everything belonged to her. Rachel opened a folder titled Special Operating Expenses. A vacation in Paris had been recorded as an international arts program research trip. A designer handbag had been declared an exhibition prop. Extravagant dinners had been charged to the client entertainment budget. There was even a transfer from the scholarship fund to an event planning company registered under the name of Chloe's closest friend. The total amount of money used for unauthorized purposes had exceeded $380,000. Rachel was not surprised. She had discovered the first warning signs 3 months earlier, but every time she considered intervening, she remembered her parents telling her that Chloe was under enormous pressure, that sisters were supposed to support each other, and that Rachel had a stable job, so she should not be so calculating. That was how her family exercised financial control over her. They did not take money directly from Rachel's hands. They used family loyalty to turn her sacrifices into obligations, then labeled every act of resistance as selfishness. Rachel downloaded the complete set of records, approved them with her electronic signature, and sent an irregular activity report to the oversight department of the bank providing Aura Art's credit. Copies were forwarded to the Aura Art Board of Directors, an independent auditing firm, and the attorney responsible for the Meridian Trust. She did not write a single word of accusation. She simply requested that all future disbursements be suspended until the investigation was complete. At 10:30 that evening, a confirmation appeared on the screen. The $2 million grant had been frozen. Less than 5 minutes later, Rachel's phone began to vibrate. Chloe called first, then her mother. After that came 2 members of the board, the bank director, and several investors who had been raising their glasses with Chloe only a few hours earlier. Rachel placed the phone face down on the table. 10 calls, 20 calls, 45 calls in less than half an hour. Messages from Chloe appeared one after another. At first, they were questions. Then, they became orders. Finally, they turned into threats. Chloe told Rachel that she had to withdraw the report immediately. She insisted that her younger sister did not understand how an arts organization operated. She even wrote that if Aura Art collapsed, Rachel would be responsible for destroying the entire family's reputation. Rachel read every message, but did not respond. She only answered when her father's name appeared on the screen. Arthur did not ask whether Maya was all right. He only asked what Rachel had done to the grant. When she confirmed that the suspension order had come from her, the other end of the line fell silent for several seconds. Then Arthur shouted that Rachel was acting out of anger, and that a responsible adult did not bring an incident from a family party into professional matters. Rachel looked toward the room where Maya was sleeping. Her voice was calm enough to sound cold. She said that for years, her father had taught her to endure everything in order to preserve family harmony. But it turned out that this so-called harmony had been purchased with her daughter's dignity. Arthur tried to interrupt her. Rachel did not give him the opportunity. She told him that from that moment forward, her personal boundaries were perfectly clear. No one would be allowed to humiliate Maya and then expect Rachel to continue paying for the glamorous lives they wanted to protect. Then Rachel ended the call. Across the city, Chloe was still standing inside the restaurant, which was now almost empty. Her face had gone pale as she read the email from the bank. The $2 million had disappeared from Aura Art's expansion plan. But the detail that frightened her most appeared in the final line. The person who had requested the freeze was not a bank employee. It was the representative who controlled 52% of Aura Art's shares, Rachel Miller. Early Sunday morning, the lights were already on at Aura Art's headquarters. The 7th floor conference room, normally reserved for meetings with major investors, was packed with board members, bank representatives, and legal advisors. No one spoke loudly. Thick files lay in front of them like verdicts that had not yet been read aloud. Chloe arrived 10 minutes before the meeting. She wore a white suit, dark sunglasses, and entered with a carefully rehearsed air of confidence. Arthur and Helen walked directly behind her. Chloe had not brought her parents because she needed their advice. She had brought them to turn a financial meeting into a family tribunal. In Chloe's mind, Rachel was still her quiet younger sister, the one who always backed down whenever their father became angry and remained silent whenever their mother spoke about blood ties. With enough pressure, Rachel would withdraw the report. The conference room doors opened at exactly 9 o'clock. Rachel entered with her private attorney and an independent auditing specialist. She wore a dark gray coat, her hair tied neatly back, and carried nothing but a tablet. No anger, no trembling, no sign that she had received dozens of threatening messages throughout the night. Chloe jumped to her feet. She accused Rachel of abusing her authority as a shareholder to retaliate over a minor incident at the party. She claimed her younger sister was jealous of her reputation and wanted to destroy the organization simply because their parents had never recognized her. Arthur immediately joined in. He demanded that Rachel end the investigation before the situation went too far. Helen began to cry. She said sisters should never drag each other in front of outsiders. Rachel looked at each of them. Then she placed her tablet on the table. She said this was not a family dispute. This was a meeting concerning the misuse of funds, falsified records, and the theft of intellectual property. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The auditing specialist presented the first set of findings. Over the previous 18 months, Aura Art had publicly claimed to provide full scholarships to 120 disadvantaged students. But verified records showed that only 68 of those students had actually attended classes. The remaining 52 files contained false addresses, duplicated signatures, and phone numbers that did not exist. The money assigned to those students had been transferred into the operating expense account. From there, it continued flowing into hotels, restaurants, fashion boutiques, and Chloe's business class flights. One board member asked Chloe whether she denied the allegations. She said every expense had been necessary to build Aura Art's brand image. She argued that the art world required connections, appearances in the right places, and the projection of success. Rachel did not argue. She moved on to the next document. A painting appeared on the large screen. It had won first prize in Aura Art's annual design competition. The work had been published under Chloe's name and featured in magazines, advertising posters, and grant applications. The painting showed 4 figures standing beneath a large tree, with the sky above them divided into uneven fields of color. Rachel opened another image. It was a photograph of a page from Maya's sketchbook, taken 6 months earlier. The same composition, the same use of color, the same tree leaning toward the left. Even the long streak of blue in the corner of the picture was identical. Rachel's attorney explained that data recovered from Chloe's phone proved she had photographed the page during a visit to Rachel's home. A few weeks later, the design had been sent to Aura Art's communications department with the claim that Chloe had developed the concept herself. The color drained from Chloe's face. But instead of remaining silent, she laughed. She said Maya was only a child who drew meaningless pictures. Chloe claimed that she was the one who had transformed those clumsy lines into valuable art. Rachel looked directly at her sister. She said Chloe had stolen an idea from a child, built her reputation with it, and then turned around and mocked that same child for having no talent. Rachel lowered her voice. That was not creativity. That was exploitation. Chloe turned toward her parents, waiting for them to defend her as they always had. But Arthur could not say a word. Helen lowered her head. The board members began voting. The result was nearly unanimous. Chloe was immediately removed from her position as chief executive officer. Her access to company accounts was revoked. Every record connected to the scholarship fund was transferred to the appropriate legal authorities so the misused money could be recovered. Chloe stood frozen in the center of the room. Only one day earlier, she had believed she was about to lead a multi-million-dollar art empire. Now, her name had been removed from every decision. That was the first price she paid for her contempt. But Rachel was not finished. She announced that the Meridian Trust would withdraw all financial guarantees from Aura Art once the leadership transition was complete. For the first time, Chloe understood that Rachel did not merely have the authority to remove her. Rachel also had the authority to decide whether Aura Art would continue to exist. 3 months after the shareholder meeting, the sign bearing Chloe Miller's name was removed from Aura Art's headquarters. There was no farewell ceremony, no speech of appreciation. Only 2 technicians standing on an aluminum ladder, removing the metal letters one by one from the wall Chloe had once used as the background for hundreds of photographs displaying her success. The audit concluded with a figure larger than anything the board had anticipated. The total losses from unauthorized expenses, falsified scholarship files, and irregular contracts exceeded $500,000. Chloe was forced to sell her private home in Chicago's northern suburbs to repay part of the money. Her sports car, designer handbag collection, and jewelry, which she had once described as assets necessary for maintaining her image, were appraised one after another. The people who had once competed to appear beside Chloe at public events began to fall silent. Phone calls were no longer returned. Compliments disappeared from social media. Within weeks, the woman once praised as a symbol of talent and generosity had become a name investors did not want to mention. Chloe refused to believe that this was the consequence of her own choices. She still believed Rachel had destroyed her life because of a broken plate. Arthur and Helen chose to believe the same thing. One afternoon in late autumn, they arrived at Rachel's apartment without warning. Helen stood outside the door with red, swollen eyes. Arthur carried a stack of documents related to Chloe's debts. They did not ask how Maya was feeling. They only said that Chloe had lost everything. Arthur demanded that Rachel use her control over the Meridian Trust to protect her sister from further legal action. He said that no matter what Chloe had done, she was still family. Helen took Rachel's hand, reminded her of the years the 2 sisters had spent growing up together, and said blood ties could not be severed over a single mistake. Rachel quietly pulled her hand away. She said this was not a single mistake. It was years of lies, theft, manipulation, and contempt for other people. The broken plate had simply been the moment when Rachel stopped deceiving herself. Arthur became angry. He asked whether Rachel intended to punish the family forever. Rachel looked directly at her father. She said personal boundaries were not a punishment. They were what remained after respect had been trampled for too long. If they wanted to see Maya, they had to apologize to her. Not with a careless apology. They were not allowed to say Chloe had not meant to do it. They were not allowed to blame the pressure of work. They were not allowed to demand that Maya forgive them just so the adults could feel better. They had to admit that they had watched a child being humiliated and had chosen to protect the person who hurt her. Helen burst into tears. Arthur remained silent. For the first time, they could not use the word family to force Rachel to back down. A few weeks later, Rachel completed the withdrawal of her investment from Aura Art. She did not keep the brand, the building, or any of the glamorous symbols associated with its past. Instead, she rented an old warehouse near a residential neighborhood on the west side of the city. There was no marble lobby, no crystal chandelier, only white walls, wide windows, and low wooden tables designed for small children. Rachel named the place Colors of Peace. It was a community art studio for children who spoke slowly, were shy, or had been told they were not talented enough. No one there asked how many awards they had won. No one forced them to create something beautiful enough to display. They only needed the freedom to place color on paper. On opening day, Rachel displayed the restored ceramic plate inside a large glass frame in the most prominent place in the studio. The cracks were still visible. She had not asked the craftsperson to hide them. Rachel wanted Maya to understand that something did not lose its value simply because it had once been broken. Maya stood in front of the wall for a long time. Then she turned toward a group of young children struggling with their paint palettes. Maya gently showed them how to mix blue with a little yellow to create the color of the sky after a storm. Her voice was still slow, but it was clear, confident. She no longer avoided other people's eyes. Rachel stood at the back of the room, watching her daughter smile among the brilliant colors. She suddenly understood that helping a child heal did not mean erasing every wound. It meant helping the child understand that the wound had never determined their worth. The plate that had once been knocked onto the floor was now the first thing every visitor saw when entering the studio. Directly beneath the glass frame was a small sentence written by Maya herself. Things that are treated as worthless can still become the most beautiful of all. Sometimes, protecting the people we love means finally refusing to stay silent. Rachel did not set boundaries to destroy her family. She did it to save her daughter from carrying the same wounds she had endured for years. Do you think Rachel went too far, or did Chloe finally face the consequences she deserved? Share your opinion in the comments, especially if you have ever been pressured to accept disrespect in the name of family peace. If this story moved you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful family drama stories about betrayal, courage, healing, and justice.